Let's discuss the news topics of the week as we bring in over the phone this week Will Richmond, the digital city news editor for the Fall River Herald News. Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How are you doing?
Good. Somewhat of a busy week this week, mainly coming out of City Hall and things happening down at One Government Center. Let's start with an update on Windowgate. You guys at the Herald News posted a story earlier this morning. For those of you who do not remember, the issue of Windowgate is about 3 years old or so, when 22 windows were replaced on the 6th floor of Government Center. There were questions about whether the project was sent out to bid in a proper manner. The windows were replaced under then Mayor Will Flanagan. And today, you guys are reporting an update in terms of a lawsuit in terms of the individual who installed the windows, losing a battle against the city in court. Fill us in.
Yes. So the son of Moses Raposa, who is the name that has sort of been most identified with as the person who installed the windows, but the son, Brian Raposa, who is a co-owner of Global Glass, had sued the city in an attempt to recoup $100,000 to pay for the costs related to installing the windows. That suit was dismissed by a Superior Court judge who determined that because there was no contract in place, there was no mechanism for repayment, basically because the project was not done properly in terms of procurement and contracting matters. The city was not on the hook for any payment, and so at this point, it appears the city may have gotten the windows for free in terms of a monetary status. Mm-hmm. But we'll still see if they'll have to, if anyone related to the city will have to pay going forward in terms of the court process or legal process from the state end, as it continues to be investigated by the Inspector General, it appears.
Right. The Inspector General is looking into the city in terms of the procurement process. As we mentioned, there was no contract signed, and there have been some complaints filed against the city that the city did not put this project out to bid in a proper manner. So that is before the Inspector General. Any update on that investigation?
At this point, no one related with the city had any info on where it stood. A spokesman for the Inspector General's office, as they traditionally do, did not comment on it. And they even go as far to say that they do not comment on whether they are or not investigating the matter. So, at this point, we've been told by people within the city government that the IG's office is looking into the matter and the procurement issues. So, from that end of it, we're being told the investigation is ongoing, and we await to see if the IG's office produces a report or anything else as this process moves forward. All
right, so we will continue to follow what is being called Windowgate in the city of Fall River. All right, next up, we've touched upon this before on the show, Will, the efforts by the city to create a rebranding and a marketing campaign to promote the city of Fall River. That step moved forward this week with the announcement of a firm that was hired to lead that effort. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, so on Monday, Mayor Correa introduced two people in the firm that will sort of be leading the rebranding effort. They will be working with a local committee of business owners that will sort of help to steer the entities that have been contracted by the city towards what the city may be looking for to offer some local input on this process as well. So they are underway. They should be meeting fairly regularly, it sounds like, with the goal of issuing a report by the end of this year on their recommendations for branding Fall River.
Yeah, it's a really short time frame to come up with, I don't know what kind of branding will be coming up, whether it'll be a slogan. We've talked about that Rhode Island slogan that didn't go over too well this past year, but it's an effort for the city to improve its image, not only within its citizenry, but also outside. And I know the Herald News today had an editorial to that fact that it's not necessarily a bad thing that the city works at possibly rebranding itself.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly expect that a new motto or slogan will be pitched. The mayor did campaign on the idea of changing "We'll Try," which you know has been the city's slogan for quite some time now.
Right.
So I would expect at least something else will be developed in that sense. And yeah, it does seem like a pretty tight time frame, but at the same time, you know, sometimes time is an enemy, and as you're creating things, you know, you start to get too many ideas going forward.
Right.
So
it's good to have a deadline, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's also talk about possibly this effort leading to some sort of, again, citywide event for next year. Of course, many of us remember Forward Celebrates America, and unfortunately its demise a few years ago. And I think the city's looking to re-energize the city through a citywide event, and that may be part of this as well. So we'll follow that as it moves forward. And the other topic, which we'll have more on FRC Media News in just a few moments, is the mayor going before the City Council this week, the Finance Committee, to talk about his plans for capital improvement projects in the city. And what's the status of that in terms of the City Council?
Yeah, so the City Council began hearing it on this past Monday night, at least from the Finance Committee standpoint. So this will now, I believe they have voted to move it to the full council for further discussion. So certainly there could be some action coming up on this later this month. You know, I know the mayor was meeting with councilors individually to brief them on the project, taking any input they may have on items that might need to be included. So we'll see where this goes forward. Certainly there's been a lot of hesitancy in many ways to move the mayor's initiatives forward at the council level. So we'll see if this one is any different and has any better success than issues such as you know, the trash trucks or other items lately.
Right. And I know the mayor is looking to do this in a cost-effective manner to not do any excessive bonding in terms that would allow for the need for ballot initiatives. Is that correct?
That is correct. You know, they've got it broken down in an effort to try to, you know, space out payments while also retaining bonding cap space in future years in case something else should come up unexpected. So certainly, you know, there's a long-term and short-term plan in place with this to, at least from the mayor's perspective, that will offer financial flexibility going forward.
All right, well, Will, sounds good. What's coming up in the next few days over at the Herald?
Well, this weekend, we'll be taking a look at what's next for the proposed South Coast rail changes. Tonight, Thursday night, is actually the last of the public hearings that DOT and the MBTA is holding on the project. They'll be in Middleborough. So now as these hearings wrap up, we'll be taking a look at what the next part of this process will be, and when we may know more on what the next decision could be with this project.
All right, well, sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll talk again next week.
All right, have a good weekend, Keith.